how are you doing? I'm great, thank you so much for asking. It's me, Kim, and I'm back for another video. Today we're going to be talking about Mixedish, which is a new show on ABC, brought to you by Kenya Barris, Peter Seiji, and Tracy Ellis Ross. I have gotten so many requests to talk about this show, and it's been happening ever since the trailer dropped, and I can't talk about a show just based off of a trailer. So I had to wait and watch the pilot episode, and I definitely have some thoughts. Okay, but before we get into that, the first thing I wanted to say is it's been, I don't know, maybe about a week since I posted a video. And if I'm not over here, then I'm over on Patreon. And people keep asking me about a podcast. I have no desire to make a public podcast. I get my podcasting urges out over on Patreon. And that's where I just sit and talk about the news of the day, my feelings, basically whatever is on my mind. Patreon is where you get unscripted Kimberly. So go on over there if you just want to hear me talk about stuff, because that's really all it is. So let's just go ahead and get into it. I think a lot of people are opposed to Mixedish existing because of the hypervisibility of mixed race black people in depictions of black life. And I get it, girl. I've made videos about this. I get it. However, if we are acknowledging that having one black parent and one non-black parent is a different experience than having two black parents, then it makes sense for me for something like Mixedish to exist. I don't really have an issue with telling that story, and it is pretty crazy that interracial marriage was illegal in this country 50 years ago. Now, just on a representation level, I will say it is a little bit weird that mixed people get to play black people on Blackish, and mixed people get to play mixed people on Mixedish. Now, that is the crux of the issue that darker skinned black people have when it comes to how we are portrayed. Okay, it is a little weird. And, you know, I don't really watch Blackish anymore. And so in that opening, when I saw little baby Dante, I was like, oh, okay, they are really determined to keep the dark-skinned kids to a minimum on this show. Mixedish begins with the Johnsons sans Zoe sitting in their living room talking about Rainbow's childhood. And she's reminiscing on all the stuff she missed out on because of her hippy-dippy upbringing. And honestly, I thought that opening was a little bit weird until I found out that this pilot was actually supposed to be an episode of Blackish. Then it all makes sense. Rainbow describes her life on this interracial commune as just picture perfect, completely idyllic, post-racial, colorblind.
We ate together, prayed together. There was no racism, no sexism, and everyone was truly equal.
And if I didn't know better, I honestly, my first instinct would be, oh, well, that's white people stuff. But then I remembered that the Jonestown cult, you know, where everybody drank the Kool-Aid, was very interracial, very mixed. Now, I did notice in one scene, somebody let their niece or their daughter in there because there was a black girl with straight hair. And I'm like, there's flat irons on the commune? They have Just For Me on the commune? The commune gets raided by the feds for reasons that we really aren't privy to, and everybody has to disperse. And Rainbow's family, which consists of her mom, Tika Sumter, freaking gorgeous, named Alicia, her dad named Paul, played by Mark Paul Gosselaar of Saved by the Bell fame, and her two other siblings, Santa Monica, super adorable, and Johan. And they have to go and move back to the suburbs, and they end up living in Paul's father's rental house. So we do have a little bit of a casting issue here, because Tika Sumter now plays Rainbow's mother. And in the show Blackish, Rainbow's mother is played by Anna Deavere Smith, who is very, very light-skinned. And so you're like, what happened? How did you get dark-skinned? Now, it doesn't really bother me. The only thing that I really thought of was we had that whole kind of not great colorism episode of Blackish, and Ruby has to talk some sense into Rainbow because Rainbow doesn't really understand colorism. And to my mind, it just feels like if you grew up with a woman as dark and gorgeous as Tika Sumter as your mother, there's no real reason for you to have no understanding of how colorism works. That's another just little continuity thing that it just doesn't really work out. But I am glad that they have a dark-skinned mother here because otherwise it's just be a show full of light-skinned people. You know, so I like that they integrated her, and it's just nice to see Tika Sumpter's face. It's just good to look at. And by the way, their last name is Jackson. So the Jacksons moved to the suburbs, and then we get a little bit more background about the parents. So Alicia and Paul met in law school. Paul didn't graduate, Alicia did. And Grandpa, whose name is Harrison III, he's also a lawyer. I really like that actor. I feel like he's one of those actors that you just see all the time. He has a super familiar face, and he's probably gotten some Emmy nominations, but he's just not a name. I liked him. I thought he was funny. He just added some fun little character flourishes.
Brought the kids lacrosse sticks.
Oh, did you also bring yacht club applications?
Look, I don't make the rules, but yacht clubs are for people who came here on the top of a ship.
So a central idea of this show is that the Jackson kids don't grow up with a good understanding of race. They don't really know about it. The parents didn't talk about it. That's a little iffy for me because we get some mixed messages about Alicia's understanding of race, and she would be the guide, you know, the racial guide here. Initially, we hear that Alicia decided that she had to graduate because she's a black woman. We got to get credentials. But then we have Alicia telling her sister Denise that she wants to be above race.
And don't you think that maybe we're above race?
Which, okay. And then finally at the end of the episode, we get Alicia explaining to her husband Paul that he'll never understand and things are different for them because she's black.
You don't have to change because you can be how you are anywhere in the world. I can only be the way that I was on the commune. Anywhere else, I'm a black woman.
Does this racial awakening just happen through the course of one episode? And, you know, just personally speaking, I know a lot of middle-aged black women. I know a whole lot. Love them. They're my favorite demographic. It just doesn't ring true to me that a black woman born in the 50s would never talk to her children about race. It just doesn't. I don't believe it. Maybe, you know, if we have to suspend disbelief to make that be true, sure. But Alicia in 1985 would be in her mid-30s. So you're born at the height of the civil rights movement and you're oblivious to race. You're saying weird colorblind post-racial stuff. It don't make sense to me. And then that you would fail to explain what race is and how it works to your children, particularly before they go into an integrated school setting. I don't know, but it's whatever. Now, while Paul and Alicia are at home trying to figure out what they're gonna do, the Jackson children, little Santa Monica, who was so cute, Rainbow and Johan go off to public school, and they immediately realize that they're different. This is a new environment, you know, classic fish out of water stuff.
And when we got to school, we got introduced to the real world.
What's going on? I don't know. Just try to keep up. I'm too little to die.
So they walk into the cafeteria, which is a classic symbol of social alienation. Like, that comes up in any TV show or movie about children. The cafeteria is where all the psychological stuff happens, right? And so here, the central conflict is racial. So there's literally a racial divide in the cafeteria. It's white and black. And it was interesting to me that at this point, we don't see any light-skinned black people sitting with the black kids, which is just not, that's just not black life. Now, I understand why they would do that, because they have to set us up for the initial conflict, but that's just not what happens in real life. So then in the cafeteria, we get the central confrontation, which is a black boy coming up to Santa Monica, Rainbow, and Johan and asking,
"What are you weirdos mixed with?"
Okay, so here's my problem. Those kids are not racially ambiguous. So I understand that they need that moment to set us up for the journey that this family is gonna go on, but all black people aren't dark skinned. If you're a black person, you know that black people come in a variety of shades. And especially in the 80s, I mean, it's just like this idea that you would immediately see those kids, especially little Santa Monica. Okay, Aunt Denise later says she has edges. Yeah, that's not a racially ambiguous person. So the idea that when you see three light-skinned black folks that your first idea is they're mixed, I don't know. And Little Santa Monica actually reminds me of Raven Simone, who is not mixed. Raven is the first person to tell you that she's African mixed with African. I just think that generally, especially in the pre-mixed race boom America, our understanding of race and racial identity and skin color is more complex and more sophisticated than what that moment is trying to tell us. It doesn't work for me. And actually, because I know the history of miscegenation in this country, I'm generally, especially if it's an older person, I'm pretty surprised when I find out that they have a white parent. I just assume if you're a Black American person that you just have light skinned people in your family, cause like that's Black American history. So it just didn't, the dots did not connect for me there. Those kids are weird. They stand out, not because they're light skinned, but because they look weird. Denise later on says they're dressed like runaway slaves. Yeah, they look like Roots. This is a pretty classic tragic mulatto narrative. It's an ongoing trope in literature, in film and television, but it's not my experience, and you know, who am I to say that that experience doesn't deserve representation? So Johan in Santa Monica, with a little bit of help from Aunt Denise, they choose. Johan chooses Black. He comes to school next time dressed like Run DMC. And Santa Monica chooses white. She decides to dress up like Madonna. And there's Rainbow stuck in the middle. Which way will she go? I mean, you know, it's run-of-the-mill. We've definitely seen that narrative before. So I think that actually this is a good time for me to talk about my problem with the racial messaging of this show. I do not view colorblindness or post-raciality as an ideal. That's not aspirational for me. And in this episode, look, I just watched one episode, but it does feel like it's a real kumbaya, one day race won't matter kind of feel to where we're headed here. That's not ideal for me. What we need is the eradication of racism. We need the eradication of structural inequality. But I am always gonna bristle if I feel like we are, the viewer, being pushed toward, why does race even matter? We're all God's children. Let's hold hands. I don't like it. We have different races, different cultures, different ethnicities. That comes with history. That comes with community. It's okay. I'm just gonna be honest and say I'm probably not gonna watch this show again because, I don't know, I don't watch a lot of network TV because I like weird stuff. I like dark. I like weird, like I love Fleabag. What a weird show. But you can't be experimental and you can't veer off the beaten path if you're trying to get 10 million people a week to watch you. And so this is a very formulaic network comedy. It's just not a fun watch to me. And the thing about most half-hour comedies, and this one in particular, is that everything is overdrawn. Everyone is a type or a stereotype, and there's just not a lot of room to get creative or draw outside the lines. And I just find it to be boring and maybe even a tad bit offensive, particularly when we get to a character like Aunt Denise. Now, I haven't talked about Aunt Denise yet. Aunt Denise is Alicia's sister. I don't know if she's older or younger, but she's a fun aunt. And you know, I love a fun aunt. Fun aunts represent. But Aunt Denise is supposed to be the bastion of Blackness. She's the paragon of Blackness. She's our guide.
Dee Dee was our favorite aunt. She had the personality of a TSA worker before they realized what their personalities were gonna be.
I'm just not sure if I trust the writers of this show to make Aunt Denise multidimensional and not just a stereotype. Here, she's very broad. It's very broad, and I know pilots are difficult. You know, you're trying to get through a lot of stuff. We're trying to cover a whole lot of ground. But Aunt Denise shows up and she's loud and she's fun and she's dressed like salt and pepper. And it's like, that's not in and of itself a bad thing. Like, it's not. It just, I'm afraid that we're going to get stuck there. And then we also get another type with Harrison III. I mean, just very classic 80s Reaganite, Gordon Gekko kind of greed is good figure.
What are you wearing?
Excuse me?
Do you think those clothes are appropriate for this office?
Both Denise and Harrison are fun. They both had a couple of funny lines, I gotta say. There's nothing particularly interesting or subversive about them in the way that they were introduced. Again, pilots are hard. There's gonna be, 22 more episodes in the first season. It didn't make me want to keep watching, I'll tell you that. I don't have a lot of faith that we're going to go much deeper because Blackish kind of does the same thing. But if you sign up to watch a network comedy, that's what you're signing up for. Okay, so Alicia figures somebody has to do some work and pay some bills, and it's not gonna be her husband. So she goes out looking for a job. She can't find one. She ends up working for Harrison III at his corporate law firm. Now, also, not super believable that Alicia wouldn't recognize that you need to code switch in your self-presentation when going into a corporate law firm. Like, I don't know. It's just not believable to me that you would think that your hippie clothes and your unstraightened curly hair would be appropriate in the corporate world. What black person doesn't have that knowledge? But anyways, Alicia goes from hippie to buppy. Paul doesn't like it, but Paul ain't doing nothing. Now, if I was a different kind of person, I would have a critique of the idea that the black woman says, fuck it, I'll do it, and she decides that she's gonna be the only person working to sustain her family. If I were a different kind of person, but I get it, we have to have some interesting stuff to shake it up or whatever. But Alicia and Paul kind of have a little bit of a tense moment about the fact that Alicia has to change. She has to assimilate because somebody has to work. And that's when she finally explains to Paul that she's a black woman, things are different, he doesn't understand. Is this the first time you're talking about race with your white partner? Okay. And then, we close the episode on an almost frustratingly saccharine note.
Do you know how hard this is? If I choose being white, I'm giving up on Mom. And if I choose being black, I'm giving up on you. It
was just so after school, especially, even with the piano music in the background where Paul and Rainbow have a heartfelt talk about trying to fit in and adjusting to their new life. And I was just like, okay, it's network comedy, Kim, it's network comedy. There are some funny lines. Aunt Denise had some funny lines when she talked about Santa Monica's edges. I laughed. This is good, old-fashioned, wholesome, family-friendly fun. You don't have to be worried about watching it with your kids. You don't have to be worried about watching it with your grandma, okay? We can all just put it on the TV and not feel awkward and not be worried that we're gonna see some boobs or something like that. I mean, that's what it is. Little Rainbow in that first episode just came across as a little bit flat. I like dynamics in my acting, but Tracy Ellis Ross's voiceovers, I loved them. Her voice is just so warm and charismatic. Can you have a charismatic voice? She has one. I'm not gonna be watching this show regularly. I'll probably watch it. There's just a super special episode. I'll probably tune in. It's not my cup of tea. I didn't love the pilot. I went and took a look at the ratings because I'm curious. I like to know what people are watching. And neither this show or Blackish are doing great. Neither of them are really hitting it out of the ballpark. Just really average and maybe slightly below average ratings. So it just doesn't seem to be striking an emotional chord with broad audiences. So that's fascinating. Maybe things will change as the season goes on. It was all right. It's a thing that happened. It was okay. That's my review. B-. Well, that's all I have to say about that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like I mentioned earlier, head on over to the Patreon. That's where all of the bonus content is. If you want to hear me talk about stuff, that's it. That's it. That's where Uncensored Kim lives. Thank you so much to all of the patrons. I appreciate you enormously. Leave a comment here on Patreon. Hit me up on Twitter or Instagram. Buy some merch. I'm really excited because I'm going to get some new merch soon. That's going to be exciting. But buy some merch. Sign up for the email newsletter. I will see you guys next time. Oh, I love this. I love this. And you guys, we are so freakishly close to having 100,000 subscribers. What the hell? Who knew I would be good at this? Who knew? Okay, that's it. Bye.